Hi, I'm Dan Carlson,
And I'm John Kadolf.
and this is Two Cat Men. We are joining together for Shudder Club.
Club. Yes.
Um, Last week we reviewed Basic Instinct, and this week it was John's turn to pick a movie. He picked two fantastic movies that he hates. So I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about our first movie.
Three Women.
Oh, we're talking about three. I have to go get my notes.
Oh, okay.
In a town at the edge of nowhere,
I love irises.
Millie Lamoureux
I love flowers.
had a dream
Candlelight.
until Pinky Rose arrived
It is Pinky, isn't it?
and a different dream began.
Pinky!
Robert Altman's Three Women will make you re-examine everyone you've ever wanted to be. Rated PG.
John let me know ahead of time that he didn't like Three Women.
Yeah.
And sure, the first thing you told me is that you didn't feel it belonged on a horror thriller channel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really didn't think so. Absolutely none of the characters were likable. I mean,
Really?
nobody in the movie was likable.
See, I don't think I could spend a whole lot of time with Shelley Duvall's character in real life, but I found her absolutely delightful in the movie.
Well, no one can spend any time with her character in the movie. I mean, nobody,
one
that's
of
the
the
whole
great
thing.
one of the
Nobody
great
likes
things
her.
about one of the great things about the movie is that she either believes that she's really popular, or she just needs to convince herself that she's really popular. She does all this little socializing with people, and no one responds to her. Like, she'll talk to them, and they'll just like keep walking.
And she
Or-
keeps talking to them while she's walking.
She'll be walking away from them and still be talking to them.
Yeah, like at a pretty much at a normal volume.
My favorite, and this is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's very funny. It illustrates her loneliness, but it's also very funny. She there's this one guy that we should say Sissy Spacek is enamored with Duvall's character at first. They're like best friends, but they get close way too fast. Like after they've hung out one time, she's talking about how she's the greatest person in the world. But there's a scene where the guy by the pool, Tom, every time Shelley Duvall walks past him, he does this really bad fake cough. And then there's a moment when Sissy Spacek asks, "Is he your boyfriend?" And she goes, "He wants to be, but I won't date him until after he gets over that cold." And so every time she interacts with this guy or says anything to him, you hear this really bad fake cough in the background. It just kind of illustrates exactly who she is in this movie.
So Sissy Spacek plays a girl named Pinky, who is new into town, and there's obviously something wrong with her, because early on in the movie, okay, so she goes and applies for this job at an old folks
sanitarium.
Do you think do they live there? Do they just go there? I don't know. They really don't explain whether it's like an old folks home or if it's a thing where they just go there for physical therapy. But there's all these women that guide physical therapy at this place.
Right.
There's this kind of nonsensical doctor who just rambles.
The first thing we hear, one of the first things we hear at this place is that there was a floater found in the pool, and the doctor's asking about if they're up to date on their malpractice insurance.
Yeah, but he just talks about stuff that is it's like random stuff you wouldn't hear a doctor talking about. You would hear.
So here's my theory on that.
Talking about.
This was made by Robert Altman. He's a celebrated director. He actually directed MASH. That was his biggest commercial hit. He made Popeye, which you hate, but he also made stuff like Nashville, stuff like that. So
now the first two movies you mentioned are also both very kind of random, rambling kind of conversation. and stuff like that in those movies as well. That is it. The conversation in his movies feels fairly disconnected. It's like
Well,
if you.
the
It's
point
like
of this movie is that it was based on a dream. So I'm just going to add that, and then you can go
okay.
ahead.
It was as if you kind of wandered into a room with a bunch of people, and they're all having individual conversations, and you can't really pick up on any one of them because there's too many of them going on. So you just stand there and you don't want to become any part of any of the conversations because none of them really seem interesting enough.
Oh, I don't think that
That's how the dialogue in his movies feel to me.
So I didn't think that none of the dialogue felt interesting. In fact, I think seeing it twice emphasized to me exactly how funny a lot of the dialogue is that I didn't notice, because a lot of it does kind of fade into the background, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But, like one of the first things I heard Shelley Duvall say, like in the background, is, "Do you know what a zebu is?" And
Yeah.
the woman was like, "No." She's like, "That's the hump on a camel." So I learned that's what a hump on a camel is called.
She
is a
says a
zebu.
lot of things like that as if she's trying to impress people, I think.
That's the character. And
I think
actually,
what is her character's name again?
Millie.
Millie. Yeah, and
They're both named Millie, but Pinky hates the name
Mildred.
Millie. Right.
Mildred.
Which is interesting.
Throughout the movie, in fact, Millie is seeking a lot of attention at work, at the apartments, and perhaps she kind of clings to Pinky somewhat simply because Pinky is the only one who's actually showing her any attention. Yeah, but again, just really odd connections made.
So I kind of want to talk. I mean, I read that the way this movie was put together was that the dialogue itself wasn't actually written. A lot of that wasn't written in the script. That Shelley Duvall actually made up a lot of her own dialogue. You can kind of tell a little bit.
Yeah, you can, because again,
I don't think it's in a bad way. I think a lot of her dialogue is pretty interesting.
See, my thought is that it is in a bad way because it's just very disconnected and really doesn't seem to add anything.
But do you feel so? Do you feel that it feels like a dream because it's based on a dream and it's sort of shot like a dream? It's hazy and very strange and.
You know, if it was a dream, it's one of those dreams that you have that, you know, when you wake up, it's like, what the fuck was that? You know?
But don't you like how every time Shelley Duvall cooks something and she's making these very easy to make items that she hosts it like it's a cooking show, even if there's no one in the room?
Yeah, I mean, so okay, that sort of stuff was
so funny to me.
Mildred. Okay, so I talked a little bit about Pinky and how I thought she was very childlike. I think she certainly has some kind of you know, disorder. She has either some kind of I think she's a sociopath. And I think that she basically has some kind of psychological disorder that screws with her empathy. She needs companionship or wants companionship, but she has no empathy whatsoever. So she clasps onto somebody who she sees as somebody she thinks she should look up to, not because she wants a friend, but because she wants to learn more about what, you know, how to act around other people, or, you know, and she has this false sense of Mildred being popular, and
Mildred has a false sense of Mildred being popular.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so Mildred is constantly, you know, acting. She's in a dream state almost, where she thinks it's like I don't think she actually knows that people don't like her, don't want to be around her, find her, you know, droll and boring, and just are like, you know, even when she comes out to go down, she says, let's go to the pool, let's go have a swim. And then, you know, they're like, oh God, here she comes again.
Yeah.
And so she goes and sits by themselves. Anybody want to swim? And everybody's like, no, we just ate. Oh yeah, so then you probably shouldn't go into the water for at least an hour then. It's like, okay, so I have a history of really not liking Shelley Duvall very much.
I love Shelley Duvall,
but her character in Three Women, Mildred, was unlikable.
okay. So,
So Shelley Duvall is an excellent actress because she embraces that role, and she
does.
made me not like seeing her on screen. I mean, every time she comes on screen and starts talking, I was just like, oh God.
I think that was a
just
perfect,
like those people at the pool.
I almost think you should, even if you hate the movie, you should watch it a second time because there's so much humor that I didn't notice the first time.
Yeah.
I never thought of
what
this.
characters do you feel were actually likable in the film?
I loved all of them while I was watching it, but I realized as I was watching it that I wouldn't want to spend any real life time with any of them. So I guess what I would say is that I think it's a brilliant movie. I don't think it's for everybody. It's certainly very slow paced. It's not and I don't mean that it's not for everybody and like they don't get it. I just mean it's certainly it's designed not to be for everybody. I also think you have to kind of be in the mood for it. If you're watching it in the wrong frame of mind, you're not going to connect with it at all. But I think I think you have a valid point that maybe it's not the kind of thing that an average Shudder viewer would expect if they're clicking play. Let's just watch a thriller, and this is not that. This is
it was billed as a psychological thriller.
Well,
that's what it's listed.
I think when there's a very kind of semi-frightening dream sequence toward the end of the movie that goes on for a little bit, and then it leads into a very shocking kind of ending. And then
how about that Aztec demon in the pool with the huge penis?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I think it's a good. So you've hated the movie so much that I can't even get at the good feelings I have for it. I can't access them with you're looking at me like that. But what I loved about it, very well put together in terms of creating the feeling of a dream, the sort of disjointed thing in that respect. I liked that it was exploring identity, because Duvall, if you've ever read anything about Carl Jung, he talks about the shadow and the parts of yourself that you can't accept. Sissy Spacek is kind of doing that with Duvall, and then as she goes into her coma, when she comes out, she's Duvall times 10. She's who Duvall thinks she is. She actually goes down to the pool, and the guys like her, and they want to hang out with her. So she becomes sort of the person Duvall was trying to be.
Yeah, she becomes the potential Mildred.
Yeah. And then there's the end scene. I think it'll disturb people. It's not for everybody. But I'd say if you're a fan of art movies, if you don't mind something that's slower paced, if you appreciate the kind of 70s vibe, I think Three Women's got it in spades. It's more for the art house crowd, Criterion crowd, and I think horror fans are smart enough to enjoy both kind of movies. So just know what you're getting into when you watch it. You're not sitting down and maybe that might have helped if I said, now, John, you're not sitting down to watch a movie about three women in a thriller. You're sitting down to watch some crazy shit and with a bunch of people, a bunch of characters that you might not like. I don't know. So maybe that's my fault. But
I don't know. I think you're taking blame where you shouldn't. I think
it's definitely Altman definitely gets a lot of blame from you. So I want to take a little bit off of him because he gets a lot of blame for Popeye.
Yeah. Well, Popeye is a movie that we won't even discuss here.
Okay, so I say see it.
The worst movie that's ever been made.
I say see Three Women. Click play, but know what you're getting into. John says.
So, okay. So again, I just felt that none of the characters were likable. I think that if you're going to write a movie, you have to have at least one likable character in a movie so that people, people have something to look forward to, whether that likable person is a bad person or a good person doesn't matter to me. Whether they live or die at the end doesn't matter to me, but I have to have something to look forward to in the movie. And absolutely, there was nothing to look forward to in the movie whatsoever. I from one scene to the next, I was just like, I paused the movie probably 4 or 5 times just to see how much time was left in it. So I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like the story. I didn't feel that there was any connection with anything that made any sense to me. The characters were too random and disjointed to care anything about. Dan says click play. I say click eject.
Oh, let's see. Shudder, you need to get an eject function.